Hey guys, what's up? Mouse here again, and in this video, I'm gonna share with you my thoughts and experiences on using these new artifacts. I'm gonna showcase them, give you my recommendation, also share with you my expectations. And just for context, to kind of let you know where I'm coming from, here are my hunters right now, and here are my weapons. There you go. And here is my current game progress in the story mode. I have already finished the entire chapter 18 until the boss Kargalan, and also I'm already at chapter 17 of the reverse mode. I also have in-depth guides on Power of Destruction, showcasing builds including old and new artifacts, and I also have guides showcasing them in clearing some of the most difficult dungeons in the game against hundreds of thousands of total power gap. So to say, not to brag, I really got a chance to use them and they helped me a lot in my game progression. Although whatever I'm gonna say here, of course, is only based on my experience and might not be applicable to everyone, I do hope that it's still gonna give you some ideas that you can actually use and adapt on your own character, because we're all different here. We all have different progress, and what's most important is that we get more and more information that would also help us in our decision making. And I can guarantee you guys 100% that whatever I'm gonna say here is not BS, may or may not work for you, but anyhow, I hope that it's gonna help. So let's start with the first one, the blessing set. As a support for Song Jinwoo, I would recommend to go for this immediately. At least a 4-piece set, because that's when it starts working for support skills. So basically, the 4-piece set activates when tagging out or using a support skill, increases the user's damage dealt by 10% and recovers their HP by 0.2% every 1 second. Cooldown is 25 and the duration is 10 seconds. So the 2-piece set doesn't have that support skill yet, and it only increases the user's damage dealt by 8%. But you can use this in Hunter content, of course, if you only have 2-piece as of now. But for Song Jinwoo content, this is the one. 4-piece set at least, okay? If you still don't have the 8-piece set, this would work fine. And for the 8-piece set, you're gonna get 20% damage buff. That's really huge. And just imagine this, for instance, when you cast Min's support skill, Judgment of Righteousness, it's gonna inflict the punishment debuff, which increases the damage taken by 15%. Okay? So that's gonna be 20 seconds. And the artifact effect here is also 20 seconds duration. And the support skill's cooldown is 25 seconds. So this is actually one of the things that really helped me clear this stage in particular in chapter 18, the clash where I had to fight 4 bosses because I was lacking DPS. So you guys can already use it now as a support for Song Jinwoo. And of course, it's still gonna be situational in some cases, because sometimes you might still want to use the destroyer set just to kind of help the team with faster power gauge acquisition rate, just to kind of help the team, and you'll still be fine with 10%. But the duration is a bit low. That will totally depend on your overall team lineup, because if you have other support units, of course, you can just use the destroyer set on them and just use the 8-piece set on one of your supports. Guardian set, 4-piece set, if you have an Alicia or Saw, plus the 4-piece set of blessing set, that's also fine, and that's still gonna give Jinwoo the damage increase, so whenever Alicia or Saw cast their shield support skill. So Noble Sacrifice, also a decent choice if you have one. So it kind of depends on the current availability of your artifacts and your resources. So this is gonna be, again, I would like to reiterate, this is gonna be different for everyone. Overall, however, I do recommend making an 8-piece set ASAP to help your Song Jinwoo progress much faster, especially in the workshop of Brilliant Light. It's gonna help Song Jinwoo a lot to deal more damage to Volt. So in Power of Destruction, however, or Battlefield of Chaos, you kind of don't want to use this because there's no tagging out and support there, except if you really need a high total power to remove the penalty, especially in Battlefield of Chaos, where the total recommended power is crazy. So if you're someone like me who likes to min-max the performance in every game content, but I would still recommend in those cases is to use other sets depending on your needs. One hit kill, for example, you can always use that on Min to reduce the cooldown of the ult so that he will be able to spam more ults. You can also do that on Melee, of course. Guardian set, you can also use that if you have a shielder on your team. We've showcased that a lot of times in most of our Power of Destruction and hard contents. Destroyer set, again, just in case you need that fast power gauge. But of course, Noble Sacrifice, also a decent choice. So for your accessories in Power of Destruction or Battlefield of Chaos, where everyone is on the field, you can use the Concentration of Firepower set if you want to speed up your skills, because that's gonna reduce the cooldown by up to 18% at 4-piece set. But do take note, for example, in Power of Destruction, speed is not equal to more damage, and so is the frequency of use of the skills. Because for example, in Power of Destruction, faster power gauge acquisition and faster cooldowns directly affects the timing on when the ult will be used. For example, you need Min's ult in specific situations during the time when you break both hands and you're attacking and focusing on the head. So pay attention to that as well, so that your ulti won't get wasted in between mechanics where you cannot hit the dragon, because that happens a lot of times. So again, speed of ult, speed of power gauge acquisition does not always mean more damage. So if you want to learn more about optimizing all of these builds and power gauge management, ultimate cooldown management, feel free to watch my Power of Destruction videos starting episode 6, because that's when I started doing those in English. Alright, so for the Hunter contents, it's pretty much the same as Genu's. You can make a full set with max enhance if you need total power. But if not, you may also break it to 4-piece sets, again depending on your needs. You may also do a 4-piece set on your armors and 4-piece outstanding connection on your accessories. This would still give you that 10% for 10 seconds, and this will give you 28% attack for 15 seconds. So the duration will be heavily affected, but if you only have 1 DPS like Alicia, who's really just gonna throw the burst skills and get tagged out afterwards, this is fine. The downside of using outstanding connection though is that it only benefits the attack units, and the duration is a bit lower, but it won't be a problem if your main DPS is an attack unit like a hyper carry like Alicia. But if you already have another DPS or semi DPS on your team, like for instance Saw, which is HP based, blessing set is gonna be very helpful, because again, the blessing set is damage increase and the outstanding connection is attack percentage increase. So you might be wondering which one's better. Well, kind of depends on the stats. It kind of depends on your attack and the attack percentage that you already have. We're not going to be talking about the specific math of this in this video. I'll probably just make another video on optimizing damage later on. But now let's focus more on the functional, the purpose, and the practical ways to actually transition to these artifacts. I hope that's gonna be fine. So moving on, again, the cooldowns here are different, so make sure that whatever setup you're gonna do also matches the timing of your rotations. Otherwise, you won't be able to maximize your damage output. And also, let's not leave out the possibility, of course, of using a 2-piece set, because that would also work in Hunter's content. This is a pretty good damage as well. If you're lacking damage and you think nothing's gonna get affected in terms of your lineup, this might actually help. So just mix it up. There's a lot of possibilities right now. You can even go 2-2-4 on your artifact setups right now. So that's what I did on my Sung Jin Woo, just to kind of show you. This one, I have a 2-2-4 setup. I also do the toughness set on some of my gears. We're gonna go over this later on, but I just kind of want to show you that these things are possible and it's okay to do this. I've cleared the hard mode using this, and I've reached the chapter 17 of reverse mode using the same. Okay, one question you might want to ask is, when should you enhance? This also depends on a case-to-case basis, but generally, if you're already getting affected by the penalty, if you're in the red zone of the total power, and these gears are what's going to get you out of the red zone because they actually give a lot of power, really a lot. like an A1 min reaching 105k, that's crazy. So you can already do that if you want to really finally complete the stage that you really want to complete. Then by all means, feel free to enhance, because you can farm the upgrade mats and the golds anyway, and if you lose the chance of a few weeks of not being able to farm the highest possible farming spot that you can do, so as long as it has the main stat and some decent substats for those who have limited resources, I guess I would say go for plus 20. I already did that here, or maybe just plus 15 is fine. Again, depending on your needs. Because I do have some equipment here that are like extremely trashed. So I did not go beyond plus 15 so that when I remove them, it's also gonna be free. So these are my artifact stats. This one's already good, really good. HP percent plus 4, 28% HP. Wow. Okay, but ultimately support units are generally not too sensitive when it comes to stats. So I think this is one of the safest choices to prioritize when it comes to transitioning to the new artifacts. And that's what I personally did. And now for the grid set, this is quite an interesting one. Really interesting. Here in the grid set, whenever you hit a target with an attack that deals break damage, it applies the grid effect. So the grid effect increases the user's critical hit rate by 1% and it stacks up to 10 times. Duration is permanent and there's an internal cooldown of 1.5 seconds. There are two really cool things about this artifact set. Firstly, as long as you use a skill that has a break effect, doesn't matter whether they have a shield or not, you can stack these. And number two, if you hit multiple targets at once, all of those will be counted as stacks. We're gonna group up these monsters first, and then I'm gonna show you this one. Okay, so we have 4 monsters now. So these guys don't have shields, okay? So when I hit them, I got the grid and I got 4 stacks immediately because we hit 4 monsters. So cool, right? And so that we can easily max out our grid stacks if we do AoE damage at the same time. So let's try it with a 4-piece set just to kind of show you. So now we are back here. Okay, we're now using 4-piece grid set. 4 stacks, 8 stacks, and then let's just do some core attack, probably. Okay, there, enhanced grid. No need to actually do it like for 15 seconds and just follow that 1.5 seconds internal cooldown. As long as your skills hit multiple targets and it has that break effect, doesn't matter whether the opponents have shield or not, it's gonna work. That's how good it is. But is the effect actually good? So let's take a look at the effects again. So at 4-piece set, you're gonna give 10% crit rate and 15% critical damage to team members. In my opinion, this one's really huge, especially when you're trying to clear contents where your artifact crit rate is heavily penalized, when you're in the red, when there's a really huge gap in total firepower. So for Sung Jinwoo content, you can actually use this. You're probably not gonna want to use this on single targets because then you're gonna have to use Saw 10 times and the cooldown is 25 times. That's gonna be 250 seconds. I don't think there's anything like that that we can utilize. But if there are multiple targets, even if you're using Saw as a support unit, you can actually build up all those stacks to get the enhanced grid. And even better, at 8-piece, you're gonna get 15% crit rate and 30% critical damage on the user as well as the team members. Okay, so let me just pull up this video and kind of show you in actual that this one actually really works. Okay, so this is my clear on chapter 18 hard mode, and just in case you're interested in learning how to clear that, I cleared that with 370k power. So the first space looks like this. There are a lot of mobs here, as you can see, and okay, so this one I used Saw, and then he was able to hit a lot of mobs. As you can see, there's that grid buff there. And since this is only a 3-minute duration dungeon, it will be impossible for me to stack these up to 10 times if I only hit single targets. And so when I reach the stage where I have to fight Kargalan, which is the phase 2 here, somewhere here, I see it here. I'm just dodging and dodging, and I'm gonna use Saw right about now. There, I used Saw, as you can see, she flew there, and boom, that's it. The enhanced grid is actually here. We actually was able to use the enhanced grid after just 1 minute and 22 seconds on the timer in a 3-minute dungeon. So this is gonna be very useful in cases where you have a support unit with a break skill like this: weak break, weak break, weak break, and a support skill, medium break, everything with that break. You're gonna be able to use this as long as your hunter can hit multiple targets, and it's gonna be very fast in that case, in those cases. And that's not all, guys. I actually use this in Power of Destruction as well. As you can see, I pause it here. You can see the grid set there appear there, and then somewhere here, as soon as I broke the head for the first time, okay, it's just about now there. Okay, so I'm gonna pause it. I think it will be zoomed in this video. There you go. There you go. Enhanced grid plus damage increase because there was a guardian set user. But ultimately, this one provides a lot of team buff. Crit rate 10%, crit damage, really big, guys, really big. Right, so when it comes to the 8-piece set, you kind of just want to use this again for total power purposes or for breaking purposes, or if you want to provide a much bigger buff percentage. But if you don't have them yet, you can stick to your original items or the old artifacts that you have, because in my case, for example, I still use my solid analysis set because I don't have any grid set yet that would actually be able to match my gears in terms of stats. I just don't have those yet. Okay, so even if I try to actually make a plus 20 set here, my saw will not be stronger. But you can do that, of course, if you're just planning to use saw as mainly as a utility to provide the 8-piece set buff. But other than that, if you don't want her to be weaker and if you're planning to use her as DPS, I would still recommend that you maintain your old gears as soon as you have at least a decent or a close one in terms of stats, because then you can assure that her performance is not gonna be affected. But again, I just want to repeat that if you need the total power to remove that red penalty in hard dungeons like reverse mode, hard mode, Vulcan normal, Vulcan 25F, those maps, you can enhance them. But if it won't serve any purpose, like you just want to flex your total power, well, do it if you have lots of resources. But if you are like me, who doesn't have much resources, then don't. Just try to maintain the overall power of your character, because these things right here, even if you try to increase them and the stats are wasted on defense percent, things like those, then it's all gonna be wasted. It's all for flex, and it won't help you clear those dungeons, except of course to close the gap and reduce the penalty in high penalty maps with high total power gap. I think that's gonna be it for the grid set. Let's go to the curse set. This is a bit more complicated than the blessing set as well as the grid set, since most of us have heavily optimized DPS units or DPS artifacts. Like mine, for example, most of my artifacts are close to, not 100% perfect, but close to that. I all have the good stats that I need, like this one: attack, death pen, crit damage, attack +2. So switching to an 8-piece set might not be as easy for us, because if you try to switch on that very early and it turns out that we don't have at least a decent stats yet, then it might affect the performance of the character. Let's just give my own character as example. So the reason I couldn't transition yet is because the burning set here, the 2-piece set effect, you're gonna get damage increase 10%, and it will increase by 0.1% every 1 second, stacking up to 100 times. So that's gonna be 1 minute and 40 seconds. So I think the 2-piece set is really good. It's already good enough. The 4-piece set is more on like an anti-fatal. If the user has 25% HP or less, they recover 25% of their HP. Well, not really anti-fatal, but just another utility that will help you survive. So in my opinion, this one right here is not something that we need to prioritize in general, because in those cases we can just practice our dodging and do those extreme evasions. So the 8-piece set is gonna be 30% damage increase, the user's damage dealt. So guys, I'm not sure if this is similar to the damage increase from the artifacts or the damage increase from the passives, but it increases the user's damage dealt by 30%, and you're also gonna get 0.2% every second, stacks up to 100 times. You're gonna benefit a lot from this set if you are playing a long duration game content like Power of Destruction or Vulcan Normal, wherein you have to break Vulcan first and you don't have to actually deal significant damage during the phase where you're just trying to break him. So now to transition to the curse set, and again, repeating this again, if you need total power, then go ahead, as long as it does not affect your character. If you're planning to transition slowly like me, wherein I don't really need the total power yet because I can finish the content just fine, I'm not in a rush. Okay, so I already have the complete set, but since the stats are not that good yet, I do have good ones like this one: attack plus 2%, attack plus 2%, damage increase, death penetration, critical damage. But since the 4-piece set will not serve me any purpose that I would be able to use in the game content that I'm playing, I'm still holding off on my transition. Like for example, this one, I don't have any good artifacts here yet. I only have this, and I risked it and I got additional defense plus 2. What the hell was that? And so I have a decent one here as well. My armors I also don't. So my plan is just to keep this for now. So since in my case I'm still fine and my beast set is still heavily optimized, then I'm not transitioning yet. But I can do that, of course. I can switch up some of these and just try to use some of my curse set just to power up my total power. So for example, let's just see the comparison just to kind of show you here. Total power is now 132k. So I can sacrifice the beast set with some of my good ones like this one and probably this one. And now we are at 145k. So this may help me in some game content where I need the total power to remove the penalty. But otherwise, I don't think it's worth using it for now, even with the stats, because it's gonna break the expert effect 4-piece. So what I did for now is whatever I got here, like here, this one, my boots is good and my armor is already decent. I use them because they have good stats, better than what I have right now, a lot better. Look at this: crit damage 4.1k, attack percent +1, damage increase +1, 2000 1.8k, really big stat boosts there. And I also have the toughness. I can use the Black Lion as well, depending on the case-to-case basis. But here's what I do: I get that huge damage increase, which is a lot better, of course, than any other gears that I would have here, even when compared to the toughness set, which is not a guaranteed damage increase, as well as the diminishing value of the crit damage because it's already too high, especially if you're using a plum sword. I transition to this one, and I just took the crit rate here, and sometimes I just use my Black Lion or arm set. The question here now is, when is the best time to actually transition to the 8-piece set? So in my opinion, once you complete the set with at least more than decent stats, I think this is gonna be a lot better than any of the previous artifacts in general. Okay, still case-to-case basis. And if you want to do the comparison with the expert set, what you kind of want to have to do is firstly to compare the game content that you're playing. For example, in Power of Destruction, at exactly 1 minute 40 seconds mark, how many Beast Set expert effect do you already have usually at that point? Then you're gonna know how much attack you got. And because that's the time when the curse set is already full. And afterwards, the effect of the curse set is gonna stop at that point, and the expert set will still continue to accumulate those stacks. So that's one factor that you might possibly want to consider. And another thing is that the critical hit, because expert set relies on critical hit, and there's also a cooldown here, 1 second. So if you're not critting that much, then you're not gonna be able to stack this, right? And so that's the second one. And the third one is how much actually do they affect the damage output. So guys, this is really complicated here, and I don't think most of us should be doing this. I don't personally do this, and the reason is it's too time consuming, and if there's any difference, it's probably not going to be that much. But just in case you want to know your actual damage output, what you kind of want to have to do is to get your attack here, your total attack. This is not your raw attack. If you want to get your actual raw attack that you got from like the weapon enhancements here, you're gonna have to find all of the attack percent that you got. You add them. So here, 16.9, 4.48, and from your gems as well, you also have those. And you kind of want to remove the percentage that turned your attack to be like this. So let's try that. Okay, let's remove this one. So you can see it's gonna, so it's reflected here, and there are other attack percentage. Who knows where else could you get them? Maybe from the weapons. I'm not sure anymore. Okay, so after that, once you get your raw attack, then you can start adding this 1.6%, and then that's where you're gonna get the actual attack value that's gonna be added for each stack. And in relation to your current total attack, how much is gonna be the actual damage dealt increase in relation to your original damage without the percentage here. It's really something that, you know, if someone could make a calculator and that, even better, like an Excel sheet, but I don't have time for those. I just kind of use my own instincts and just test it out, because at the end of the day, whatever you get here, even if you're planning to use an 8-piece artifact set or a 4-piece combination, there's not gonna be, it's still random, right? It's hard to confirm, and each and every case, what happens in every fight, in every game content is also different. There are long fights and there are maps where you won't be able to create. So yeah, I think in general for Sung Jin Woo, I would recommend the 2-piece set immediately. Get those stats. If you have a good set on the 4-piece set, you can do that as well. Even though the set effect is not good, if the stats are already high enough to actually beat your previous level 55 artifacts, then go ahead. But if not, then I would not recommend that. Of course, total power. And for the 8-piece set, in my case, what I would personally do is that if I already have at least decent ones, like 1 or 2 failed rolls, then I'll probably transition to that so that I can farm higher level content. But for now, since I don't have those yet, then I gotta keep my expert set for now. But definitely in the future, we're gonna have to remove all of these, because it's gonna be a game of total power. Doesn't matter how much you optimize for the old artifacts. I think in terms of stats, it's gonna be bad. But again, that's in the future, because we've only been farming this for 2 weeks. So yeah, I think that's gonna be it for the curse set on Sung Jin Woo. Very situational. Very situational. I don't have the answer to this. And for the hunters content, the curse set is actually even better, because sometimes you're gonna have to break the shield. So this guy doesn't have a shield, but just to kind of show you the idea. For example, in Vulcan, I don't have my attempt in Vulcan anymore, but just to kind of show you the idea, sometimes you're gonna have to break the shields, and as time goes by, even if the hunters are off field and you're not using them, they keep on stacking those cursed stacks. So now, as you can see, it already has 32. And even if I go out, it's still gonna continue. And it's very good in comparison to the expert set, because in the expert set, you're gonna have to keep on attacking, right? So in the hunter content, generally, I do believe that curse set is even more valuable. You can even use multiple curse sets on multiple characters and rotate them, and they would still get, all of them will still get the stacks as time passes by. So that's one of the really good things about the curse set for the hunters content. So yeah, overall, I think for the most part, the new artifact sets are really good in terms of stats. Probably we're gonna change up to this. And so what's gonna happen to the old artifacts like the destroyer set or the one-hit kill set? They're still gonna be very useful in other game content. Those artifacts that has a utility effect will still probably be useful in some cases, but the damage related artifacts are probably gonna be obsolete. I honestly don't like this artifact system right now because it's very linear, and because the stats are too high, we're kind of forced to adjust to this, and the total power gap is too high in most of the game contents. It's kind of forcing us to use this. And the reason why I don't like this in particular is because the options we have right now are only 3, and that totally removes the dynamics of building a character, and the variation in terms of gameplay and builds are mostly gonna be gone. Like for example, you're gonna do an ult build with the one-hit kill set, fast power gauge gain on the destroyer set, things like those. And so I believe that it's gonna be very linear, but I do believe that in the future they may add more artifacts, probably in other Workshop of Brilliant Light stages that's gonna come soon. I don't know, it's just a speculation of mine, maybe wishful thinking, but I do hope that there's gonna be more variation to this, because this one is too boring, because we're just gonna use 3 artifacts and then we're gonna roll the stats. Where's the fun for those who want to build their characters and play them in various different ways? It's gonna be gone. So I do hope that they update this in such a way that it's gonna be more interesting. But you know, it also has its own good side. It's gonna keep things simple for majority of the people, but for me personally, I want to have more variation in terms of gameplay, because that's what makes the game really fun for me personally. So I think that's gonna be it for now, and I'll just update you on my latest character progression and the things I do here in the game. Make sure you subscribe, because there's gonna be a lot of these. I do share a lot of tips and tactics and builds and strategies, fury crafting mostly, just to kind of give you some ideas and options on how to do some things, and to make the game more interesting as well, so that we all can enjoy the game better. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and see you on the next one.